So 2 years ago, I joined an awesome community that became a charity that's called Django Girls. So what they do is they organize workshops for women to learn how to code in Django. And when I joined, there was nearly 2,000 people that attended a workshop in, I think it was like 30 countries or something like that. And today, we have more than 10,000 people that attended a workshop. So nearly 400 events now. So how did it happen? Like, is it because cupcakes or because women in tech is trendy right now? No, it's because documentation. So why? Because everything was documented, from how the coach are supposed to coach people. The material we give to people also was free and online, and you can find it online. Also, all the things regarding organization of the event was documented. So if you are doing something awesome in your community, please doc it, because it will empower people to also organize events. So if you want to document what you are doing, what should you do? Basically, write stuff about all those nasty and scary things that nearly prevented you to organize your events. So like, where should I organize my thing? Like, can I do a meetup in this company, or should I be in an open community area, stuff like that? And also how to contact sponsors, question about accessibility, food, if you have a code of conduct, which I strongly encourage you to do, how to enforce it, things like that. And really, you should totally do that, because I met an amazing group of people here. They all have amazing projects, like Game Jab, stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure people would love to be able to organize things similar, but they are really, really scarce. So since we're talking about community and documentation and Write the Docs, there is also documentation on how to organize meetup for Write the Docs. It's available on their website. So there is nothing preventing you to organize a Write the Docs meetup in your own city. So that's it for me.
I think most of us have probably at some point in our lives stopped to think about how really interesting reading is. Like we're staring at squiggles on the page and vividly hallucinating, basically. We've developed this incredible way of transmitting information that doesn't make a lot of sense if you stop to think about it. It requires active memory, sustained attention, and a real understanding of the language that you're reading. And this is actually quite hard. So to start with, I'd like people to raise their hands if they know somebody who has attention deficit disorder. Add your hand if you know somebody with dyslexia. Add your hand if you know someone who's had a stroke, a concussion, Down syndrome, or is on the autism spectrum. I told you to keep your hands up. Come on. Yeah, so look around. So those are all clinical diagnoses that could give somebody trouble reading the documentation that we're working so hard to write. And as documentarians, we should think about the functional effects of these conditions. So you don't have to write for somebody with dyslexia, but you want to consider these things when you're writing. So reading requires memory, both working short-term and long-term, problem-solving skills, sustained attention, and reading, linguistic, and verbal comprehension. And if you're going to include images, then it also requires visual comprehension. People can have trouble with one or all of these, and they don't need a clinical diagnosis to have these problems. So I don't know if you've ever tried to read a mobile phone in a moving vehicle, if you've tried to understand something when you're panicked or tired, if you've tried to watch a video in a loud bar. All of these things can have an effect on our ability to understand what it is that we're trying to read and do. So there's a few things that we can do to make it easier for what we're writing to be understood. First of all, we can choose our language intentionally. I think you've probably heard we should aim for a grade 8 reading level. This is not the same as targeting 8th graders. It's more about choosing simplistic vocabulary, using short sentences and short paragraphs. There's a great tool called Hemingway, which will let you paste your text into it, and it will highlight problematic words and sentences for you. We should also be very literal when we're choosing our languages. Sarcasm and parody can go over the heads of autistic people. Rhetorical questions, the same problem. Idioms and figures of speech are problems for people who are not reading in their native language. And And yes, so the next thing we can do to help people understand what we're doing is to structure our content well. This basically amounts to following good advice for writing on the web. Chunk your content, use good descriptive headings, use semantic tools where you have the ability to mark your code up, to mark your words up using bulleted lists, paragraphs, and that sort of thing, so that the technology that people are using to consume your writing can help them to understand what it is that you're communicating. Put the most important things at the top of the article, the page, at the beginning of the headings, and use very descriptive links and calls to actions when you're joining your documents from one to the other. Rather than saying click here, click here, click here, and rather than saying read more, you would want to highlight, how to set up on Windows. If you're in the OS X article and you're trying to link to the Windows article, you would make the link text the thing that people will be looking for, and make sure that that is reflected on the page that they're arriving on, so that they can maintain the thread when they switch from one page to the other. And the final thing that we can do to help people understand what we're doing more is to use media thoughtfully. So videos and images are great for people who are English as a second language. Sorry, that's a North American term. People who are not reading in their native language, because boy, are there a lot of languages here. And people who struggle with reading comprehension. Videos and images are great for that, but keeping in mind the people that would struggle with that, we also need to include text versions of those. I was really excited to see the JW Player example from Chris's talk this afternoon that had both text and video side by side. That was awesome. And we also need to think intelligently about using color. So it's great for identifying good and bad examples, for example, but you would also want to include a heading or something like that so that people without visual comprehension could identify that on the words alone. If you want to read any more about cognitive disabilities and how they affect reading, the WebAIM website is great for that. Thank you.
So let me see you raise your hands. How many people here spend too much time in meetings? So I too was addicted to meetings until I mastered the art of the 20-minute meeting. This is one of my favorite Dilberts right here. I'll read it aloud for those in the back. We have to learn to do more with less. Less meetings? No, we'll need more meetings to figure out how to do more with less. So we're all busy here. I found that just the sheer number of meetings I had in my workday got in the way of my primary role as a tech writer, and it was hard to even get time away to write and edit. So one solution I tried was just outright saying no to meetings, like saying no to drugs. But then this too got in the way of my work life, as you can imagine, because eventually you do have to meet with people at some point during the workday. So the solution I came up with is my patented pending method for the 20-minute meeting. Step 1, do we need to meet at all? Could we just do this over email? Step 2, schedule only the time you need and only use the time that you've scheduled. And by booking just a very tight 20-minute period, it's essentially just kind of like rapid fire question and answer period. I tell the engineers and product managers who I work with, your time is very valuable, my time is valuable. I know you have a very busy schedule. All I need is just a tiny 20-minute window, just be coffee meeting. I could walk with you on your way to like the self-driving car or whatever you need to do. But just 20 minutes of your time is all I need to get what I need to write this documentation. I'm big on agenda, so I'll actually give the structure. I'll say, who's leading the meeting, what really is the goal and outcome of this. And also, I'll be highly selective with the invites. Is it just one-on-one, or will there be a larger group there? And also, is the key decision maker going to be in the room? Because if we're just kind of talking about having more meetings or circle back on that, or have your people get to my people, it is a waste of time for the people in the room. And then after I have the meeting, I send a follow-up and I recap. I say, hey, thanks so much. We talk about this, this, and this. I see, the product launch deadline has been delayed to this date. I'll make sure to have the documentation ready to review on this date, to send to the translator by then, so that we publish it in time for your new launch deadline. And I'll, spell it out just in short bullet points. And then final step is to really reevaluate these recurring meetings. Those are kind of the standing ones. The weekly meetings, the monthly meetings. Are these really needed? Or is there a way that we can kind of crunch these down? And so I want to say thank you all, and I hope that you too will master the art of the 20-minute meeting and save time in your workday.
Okay, so how many of you keep chickens? Anyone? 1, 2, okay, so a few people here. Right, so first things first, chicken can help you write documentation and code. They're actually really good at it. So if you need extra workers, get chickens, then get friends to do your work. And, so why do you keep chickens? Well, they're cute. They lay tasty eggs every day. They're super easy to look after. And actually, they're miniature dinosaurs. Like, how cool is it having a dinosaur in your back garden? Probably the best thing ever. Oh yeah, and when you get back from conferences, if no one's been collecting the eggs, you come back to a huge pile of eggs. So you're sorted for food, like for the next week. You don't need to go to the shop. So how do you get a chicken? So when I started keeping chickens, the first chicken I got, well, actually the first 4 I got were rescue chickens, which were ex-battery hens. They came to me looking really, really unhappy and really sad, and they had all sorts of health problems. But because I took them in, they got to live a lot longer. They got to live like an extra 3, 4, 5 years. And they were really awesome. They had the best personalities ever. And they were mean. They could beat up a cat. So the next time I got chickens, I bought pullets. Anyone knows what a pullet is? Okay, almost no one. A pullet is a young hen. So at the point before she starts laying eggs, she's called a pullet. So I bought a pullet. They were super cool. And when they're little, they're so adorable. And then, I wanted a little bit more. So I got some chicks the next time. And I had these fuzzy things living in my lounge for weeks. And they always followed me around everywhere. And it was the best. So then I thought, okay, well, right, I've got to go all the way. I'm going to hatch my own chickens. So the next time I got eggs, and I hatched chicks from eggs. And you get this egg, and out of the egg comes a chick which is this big. And it doesn't re-flat pack. Like, it just goes poof, and out pops a chick. And they fall in love with you. You are their favorite person in the world. They will come and cuddle up with you. They'll follow you around. They'll be happy to see you. They're like the best things ever. That's what mine looked like, the first lot that I hatched. Aren't they cute? They were just living on the lounge table while I was working. Amazing. Anyway, so they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So sometimes they have really weird-ass headgear, and sometimes they're really fluffy and fuzzy. They come in all sorts of colors, and look, this one has a mohawk. I want a mohawk like that. And yeah, they can be big and really small. Chickens actually do get to that big. I'm not kidding. I told you they're dinosaurs. And sometimes they have really weird, styles. I mean, I think this one's trying to be trendy. I'm not sure if it's succeeding there. Oh yeah, and they grow, the most awesome mustaches ever. I've never seen anyone else with a mustache that awesome. Oh yeah, and they lay eggs in all sorts of different colors. It's not just brown and white ones, which are really common in the shops. They can be green or red or blue, pretty much any color. So if you guys want to keep chickens, what do you need to do? Well, first you need to check whether you can keep chickens. I know this seems like a really obvious thing, but some places you can and some places you can't, especially in cities. And sometimes you can keep some hens, but no cockerels, and sometimes you can keep as many as you want. I can keep as many as I want, it's awesome. And so what do you need? You need a house for them to live in, because, I mean, who wants to live outside without a roof over their head? A secure run, because you don't want them to get eaten by pests. Food and water, and someone to look in on them when you're at the conference, because you don't want to be leaving them alone for that long, do you? They like attention. Those are my chickens. They're in the temporary run at the moment because I recently moved house and I'm still building a proper run for them. But they're really awesome. So yeah, they can live in anything. They can live in an old shed, which is converted. They can live in a palace. And you can even keep them in the city. I mean, you've got to let them out so they have a bit more space to run around during the day, but they need somewhere secure to stay at night, so you can build them a little coop and run like this for the night. So really easy to look after. Every day, it only takes a few minutes. You go out there in the garden in the morning with your cup of tea or coffee, whatever rocks your boat, and you check in on them, you pick up the eggs, you give them a little bit of a fuss, give them some grains or some seeds or something. They're happy. Every week, you've got to clean them out. It doesn't take very long because no one likes cleaning out chickens, so like people have developed these really awesome chicken coops which require like absolutely minimum cleaning. And yeah, you need to make sure they always have fresh food and water because, you know, they like eating, drinking. It's good for them. And then like every half year, you clean out the run, which basically involves throwing away all the stuff that they've been putting in there, like all the leftover food and all the other things over the last half year. And you give them some preventative treatments because you don't want them getting sick. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So problems they could have, well, they can pick up some diseases, but you can, if you look after them well, they won't have those. And they can fight a little bit, but you know, pecking orders, they sort themselves out. Neighbors can complain about them, but actually if you feed the neighbors the eggs, I haven't actually had any complaints. I've been keeping chickens for 5 years, no problems. And predators, we've got foxes, but if you build a good run, this won't be a problem. And this is what lives on my desk for half the year.
Okay, my name is Nick Blanchette, and I'm a huge fan of Burning Man. First off, how many of you know what Burning Man is? Really cool. So it's not a cult for sure, even though it's definitely a cult. So for the 2 people here who don't know, Burning Man is an arts festival that takes place in an incredibly inhospitable environment in Nevada. It's a social experiment, et cetera, et cetera. It's got like 10 principles about living your life correctly there. It's super culty. And so you can't talk about it without seeming like a total fanatic. I'm going to cut the video short, but you can get an idea of the type of thing that happens. Oh, well, let's wait till we get to some fire. There you go. And this is like all real, and this is 2017. So at Burning Man, I camp with a camp called Comfort and Joy. And Comfort and Joy is not just a Burning Man camp, it's also a 501c3 in the United States, which means it's a nonprofit. And we have a mission statement, we've got a board, and our basic goal is to spread and encourage queer values in the world. One of the things that we also have is a very robust non-discrimination policy, which includes quite a few different protected classes. And this sort of became a problem. Well, this was actually an advantage for me at first because I'm not particularly creative, but I'm really good at being organized. So I'm like, great, I don't have to have artistic ability. I can just sort of like be there. I have a place here. So my tasks, I became the chair of the communication committee. My tasks were to educate the Burning Man virgins. They're just called virgins, don't be offended. I had to wrangle the volunteers, and I had to empower the various artists that we had. And this is an especial challenge for us because part of our non-discrimination policy includes education level and literacy. So how do you document when you have people who literally can't read, or who don't check email, or who don't have a computer, or don't have a smartphone, or know how to text? And the answer is there. Okay, well, I don't know what happened, but the answer is, this is a tent that we have at our camp, and if you see at the very top, it says, glitter done, which is like a fancy way of saying get her done. So the answer is make it happen, whatever means necessary. It's almost the opposite of documentation. Yes, I wrote documentation, a lot of documentation. I had to explain like how to set up, it's supposed to auto, there you go. How to set up, how to volunteer for your various hours, when you had to be there, the types of things you needed to pack, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing about it ended up being is we only had about 75% of the people who actually consumed this information. And as a technical writer, I would be mortified. But knowing this sort of special audience that I was dealing with, I kind of had to put my instincts aside. And because at the end of the day, I had to make sure that people did what they needed, I couldn't expect them to comply to me. So just as we write to audiences, I had to not write to audiences. So I called them, I made personal relationships with them, I led them on vision quests. It was a lot of fun. But this, by the way, is a new art thing here at Burning Man this year. It's called the Tree of Tenery. And it has 280,000 LEDs in all kinds of pretty patterns. It's amazing. So at the end of the day, another problem became with our organization is the people who founded it are incredibly artistic. And as we grew, we had 164 campers this year, and as we grew, it became difficult to have the people who created this environment and this world deal with the bureaucracy. And so my goal in documenting was also to help protect them. So to make sure that the non-discrimination policy was followed, that we didn't require them to read anything. And it was a lot of extra work, but at the end of the day, it's totally worth it. If you haven't been to Burning Man and you want to go, go. If you don't want to go, don't go. This is me. My Burning Man name is Spice. You get another name there. And this is my contact information and the contact information for my organization. Thank you.